Good day. I'm Dr. Gregory Robeson Smith, and I'm a member of the African American Men of Westchester. And we are pleased to have in our continuing seminars on the Black church role in community economic development, Dr. Malcolm Punter, who's the president and CEO of the Harlem Congregations for Community Improvement, HCCI, founded in 1986 by a good colleague of mine, Bishop Preston Washington. It happens to be the largest economic developed interfaith black and brown entity, not just in New York City, founded in the village of Harlem, but in the United States. And we're so pleased to have Dr. Punter with us, who heads this prestigious organization, this entity that's doing so many things. Hello, Dr. Hunter. Thank you very much for being with us.
Dr. Robertson Smith, it is my pleasure to be with you today. And you're right, Harlem Congregations for Community Improvement has been working in the community for 35 years and was founded by the clergy community in the Harlem and the greater New York City area for the purposes of revitalizing the Harlem community that had experienced a decline of about 40 years, which included deterioration in the buildings as well as the quality of life. And it was these ministers, men and women, who decided that they had to do something about it, that faith without works, as the scripture said, is dead, and they wanted to reinvigorate and revitalize that community.
It's been my pleasure. I served on this board at one time in treasurer. I think the thing that surprised me, maybe I shouldn't say surprised me, but how black and brown ministers can come together in harmony for a common goal. And I think it was unique in that respect and the kind of work that it has been able to do. So, Dr. Punter, what are the goals of the HCCI?
I mean, the mission statement is clear. The mission statement of HCCI is to revitalize the Harlem community and empower its residents. And we do so through a integrated program of services and outreach that started with a core belief that housing and housing services was the most necessary aspect or service that was needed in the community of Harlem at the time. Now, we're not talking about Harlem today that is gentrified. We're talking about Harlem that was existing in the 60s and the 70s. Yes, and HCCI was incorporated in 1986, but the conditions of the Harlem community at that time was starkly different than what it is today. And what it is today is by and large through the contributions of the Harlem Congregations for Community Improvement. I always stress the name because congregations is plural. And we have over 100 houses of worship who are part of that congregations, that coalition that continue, that worked so very hard in the early days, around 1986, but continue to work hard to make sure that Harlem residents are empowered economically, spiritually, and socially in their community. And I think that is the underpin of the mission work of HCCI. And I'm very happy to be its leader in this time at this moment as its president and chief executive officer.
You have a unique program and unique, I would say, agenda. Unlike most developers who build a building, it could be turnkey or they just manage it, you have ability to integrate programs and supportive services as you do the what I call the steel and the mortar and other kind of things of building buildings. Can you tell us how do you deal with the entire person?
I think that's a great question, Reverend Dr. Robertson Smith. And you're right. You were a board member, and I was. My tenure at HCCI extended during that period in which you were a board member, and as well as I do, that the organization is a grit leveled organization. We're not sort of the religious type of people or faith organization that hope for things in the future. We take action. And the first thing we did was take action in reclaiming many of the abandoned buildings that existed in Harlem. We recaptured the community by fighting brick by brick, block by block, to remove the scourge of illicit drug activity in those buildings, in those corridors, and we worked hand in hand with the people of the street as well as the people of the responsible politicians and quite frankly, police department to make sure that the quality of life in the Harlem community was improved. So I wanted to make that point. These are gritty, frontline, brave ministers and lay people who signed up for the fight to recapture and reclaim our community. That's the first point. The second point is that we had to do so with compassion. We know that people were suffering from drug addiction, despair, poverty. And when you have a combination of despair, drug addiction, and poverty, that means that you have a community that needs to have some work done for it and on behalf of it. So it took some time. So in order to do so, we made sure that not only housing was provided, but a complement of social services that addressed the needs of families and individuals, and then sometimes working with people who were part of the problem, in reentry programs when they come out of prison for the offenses that they may have committed because they were drug addicts or a part of that system.
And youth,
So
and youth aging out of foster care. I remember.
So, one of the populations that we pride ourselves on is the youth aging out of foster care. These are the children of the parents who were in those issues of drug addiction. They were left on the street or given up to institution. So we need to help them when they come out and age out of their foster care system. That we provided a clean and new construction building located on West 153rd Street that catered to youth aging out of foster care, and each youth aging out of foster care was giving a subsidy to provide for their housing needs, and they were also encouraged through workforce programs that HCCI provided, such as the Construction Trades Academy, as well as STEM-based programming that taught people sciences as well as mathematics and helped them achieve their GED and go on to college with our encouragement. And we also assigned a full-time, and we still do so today, a social worker to help those youth aging out of foster care through the system. We also help people living with HIV and AIDS, and we've been doing so for 30 years. HIV and AIDS was a pandemic before this pandemic that we're familiar with in our community, because when the national average was 5% people infected, in our community it was almost 40%. So HCCI developed a program and was funded through New York City Human Resource Administration to provide housing and case management services for people living with HIV and AIDS. And many of those individuals and family members have successfully, lived their life as even with HIV because of the services that HCCI has provided. And we have a complement of health and wellness-oriented programming and services.
Now, with all that, I want to spend a little time talking about your economic development portfolio because it is so large and so diverse from retail to affordable. I won't steal your thunder, but I do also understand that you provide the means why people can understand how they can get equity housing and so forth.
That's right.
Can you tell us about that, what you do both on the what I call the non-for-profit side and the profit side?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Although HCCI, Harlem Congregations, is structured as a non-for-profit, our real estate activities and our economic development activities are structured with a for-profit mentality in mind, an objective. So we're looking to empower Harlem residents by making them more economically responsible and economically viable to engage with banking institutions through purchasing of their real estate. So, for example, our model is you may start off as low income and in a low income housing building, but our objective is to graduate you through all of our programs and services where you will learn how to become a first time home buyer. You
How,
can become
I
a
mean,
first time home buyer. Mhm.
how many types of different kind of housing do you have? And I also understand that you manage property and have some retail business.
Yeah, so HCCI again is a entrepreneurial model. So we seek to own our real estate and hold that real estate in perpetuity. And what that means is that we also manage the real estate assets that we own and develop. We make sure that the bottom line and the services are remain to the standard that HCCI has indicated and will continue to indicate in the future. We've also have an asset management department where we watch every dollar that goes through and in and out of our community, as well as our real estate assets. And we are responsible for over 80 retail storefront locations. This allows us, this portfolio of storefront location allows us to provide local, small, Black-owned businesses or Latino-owned businesses with rents that are reasonable and also promote their success as business owners. And we go further than that. We don't just lease these stores to individual businesses. We go further than that, and we want to make sure that our community has the mix of businesses that will assure that the residents can be successful. So we want to make sure they have fresh foods and groceries. We want to make sure that they have a cobbler in their community. We want to make sure that they have tutoring services for the children in the community. And we want to make sure we have full service restaurants so that people can have sit down dining and social interactions. And all of these 80 retail stores are controlled by HCCI and provide reasonably cost rents for local small businesses, which is a prescription for a community's viability and success. Small businesses give the first jobs to the neighborhood youth when they come when they want to learn how to work at their first job. So we know that these businesses hire from the community and they give the young people the opportunity to grow as young people and eventually as young adults.
Give us an idea of a number of units. I think I know the answer, but I want you to say of housing that you have.
HCCI has developed over 5,000 units of housing. Some of those housing were intended to be home ownership programs. So while we developed them and owned them for a time, eventually we turned them over to the residents that lived in the building. And those are usually structured as cooperative apartment buildings. We've also developed condominium units where the individuals start out as the owners of their individual unit. And we did that through an opportunity to provide affordable condominium units and complement it with maybe even market rate condominium units. If you ask me for a ratio, HCCI has developed those 5,000 units. 85% of them have been rental, affordable, moderate income rentals. About 10% have been home ownership programs that are what we call limited equity programs, like co-ops and those derivatives. And then the remaining 5% have been free market brownstones or market rate condos. And because this is important, because HCCI has never said it was going to be providing housing only for the very low income. It always, in its founding document, said that it was intended to be low to moderate income as well as economic development project. So one of the economic development projects that you may not know that we're involved in is the new hotel and affordable housing structure on West 125th Street between Adam Clayton Powell and Frederick Douglass Boulevard. So HCCI, because of its experience as a housing developer, when you have to apply to New York State or the federal government for those low-income housing tax credits, one of the requirements is that you have a track record. So HCCI used this track record working with a local African American developer to procure tax credits to make sure that the residential tower in that two-tower development will have affordable housing units for people that live in the community to reside in. It's a wonderful project, 27 stories
Amazing.
in height, and it's a $180 million project
Is
right
that,
on 125th
that
Street
is that where the old Lowe's used to be?
in the old Loews Theater, the
Old
Victoria
Valley, yeah,
project.
right.
Yes,
It's right next to the Apollo.
that's correct. Steps away from the Apollo Theater, and Reverend Robert Smith. We have replicated our model, not only in other parts of the city of New York. We started in Harlem. We're developing in the Bronx, Washington Heights, and we've also I've traveled quite frequently in the last few years to other locations throughout the United States. In fact, I'm building a coalition of houses of worship in Seattle, Washington, and I've been out there 3 times to work with the local groups of churches and other houses of worship, and we're establishing a sort of a micro HCCI out there in Seattle, Washington. We're building 400 units in Atlanta, Georgia now, in partnership with the New York-based developers. So we're now replicating our model in Atlanta, Georgia. And believe it or not, you're going to be surprised. We have a project in Columbia, South Carolina. The so-called Deep South.
Right,
So we're
right.
developing housing in Columbia, South Carolina as well. And because we have the experience, and in terms of development and tax credits. Remember, low-income housing tax credit is a federal program.
That's right.
We can develop in the Caribbean if you have an opportunity, and HCCI is always here to consult and work with churches and other houses of worship, and we're happy to travel and replicate our model throughout the country
Well, we,
as well as the hemisphere.
we need to bring you to Westchester. That's what we need to do.
Well, I like White Plains, so it
Westchester.
was a good opportunity.
Now you've done so much, and I know under your leadership. So where do you go from here? What is the opportunity you see or strategic vision for HCCI in areas maybe where it's not currently operating in terms of program,
Yeah.
economic development, and so forth?
I think when you have any viable model, what you do to grow is you replicate that model in places that need it. There are low-income communities all over this country. In fact, the majority of the country is low income, right? That so-called 1% versus 99%. So what we did was commission a study in partnership with one of the large banking institutions, and we categorized 8 different uh, municipal locations throughout the country. What we found is that we know what the bar of entry is for those locations. We know the market demand. We know the demographics, and we are going to systematically replicate HCCI's model. And if I'm given a chance, I will spread this mission all over this country. And I think that's what we should be doing in the next 5 years, and certainly throughout our future.
I want to thank you very much, Dr. Punter. Also, I acknowledge that you have a very diverse board, made up of both lay people and clergy.
That's right. That's
And
right.
you have folks that have been with you for a long time, and you've had a unique model of bringing the interfaith community together for harmonious. It's all the things that we've talked about that we are brought here to do. And we want to thank you for sharing the model. Many developers don't share. They take, but they don't share. But HCCI is unique in its purpose and mission. And I know when we think about Canon Williams and we think about Dr. Carrington, and we think about Bishop Preston Washington, I know that they're all looking down at you and looking at you. And thank you so very much for all that you've done. You truly have come to this place at such a time as this. And on behalf of the African American men of Westchester, we want to thank you so very much for taking this opportunity and sharing this actuality, not a story, but what is really taking place. And we hope that others can take the same kind of programs that you have. And this seminar that we've had today will be an idea to give them a chance and opportunity. If you need to have information on HCCI, they may contact. Would you please give us your website and so forth?
Sure, you can reach us at www.hcci.org. It's easy to remember, hcci.org. Or you can call us at 212-281-4887, 212-281-4887, and a pleasant receptionist will answer the phone and direct you to any of our services that you may inquire about.
And you're
Thank you.
located where?
So we're located in our main office, our corporate office is located in Central Harlem at 256 West 153rd Street. That's New York, New York, 10039. That's 256 West 153rd Street, New York, New York, 10039.
Dr. Malcolm Punter, my friend and brother, thank you so very much. And you have a wonderful day. And we hope that your projects, that you're spreading the good news throughout the country, will continue.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you again.
Rosen Smith. Thank you, and thank you for having me.